Thank you, Scott. Colin, I'm going to ask you for a favor. I do not want to butcher your last name, so please.
My last name is Chiarodo.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a 4-syllable Italian speed bump for most people.
So I think I would have not done service to it. Colin is the Senior Development Manager for Timberline Real Estate Partners. He is responsible for managing the entitlement, design, underwriting, and development of the 103-acre parcel mixed-use development on the screen, which is Rivana at Innovation Station. Prior to joining Timberline, Colin led the construction of over $3 billion of commercial real estate projects with Clark Construction Group throughout the Washington Metropolitan Area, including the GW Science and Engineering Hall, the Museum of the Bible, and the Wharf, which is a wonderful project. So, Colin?
Yeah. We'll appreciate your having me today, providing a bit of an update on our development project, which we feel is quite exciting and a good opportunity not only for the airport, Loudoun County, but the broader region, as our property is situated not only in Loudoun County, but Fairfax County as well. For those, most of y'all are familiar with the region, but our site relative to Washington, D.C., Reston, as you mentioned with Ramada, the Silver Line, there's been more of a growth trajectory west towards the airport. If you're not familiar, this is a view of the site. The CIT building, which you mentioned earlier, is located on the property. It was built in 1987. Dulles Airport there on the left-hand side of the screen. We have the new Innovation Station Metro, which opened last November, and Waterside to the north. Here's a view north to the property, and the assemblage here outlined in that maroon line, quite proximate to Metro, very walkable. When we thought of the development sites, really, how do we come up with something that's integrated that creates sort of a cohesive urban fabric? Thought it was interesting to provide some historical context to be with Committee for Dulles and really the siting of the airport and its construction almost, 60 years ago?
Almost.
The region's changed drastically, not only in that period, but even more recently with the metro station. Thought it would be interesting to show a little bit of the history of the property. So the CIT, as some of you know, was constructed by the Commonwealth of Virginia as sort of an innovation public-private partnership tech incubator. This was the original concept development plan for the property. Pretty interesting, sort of thought to be a more of a commercial office, locate a number of different companies in this property and have it be an innovation center. The Dulles World Center plan that followed that initial zoning, kind of a gridiron layout. This is the hub in 2017. Over time, and sort of the backstory here, so the property has now been developed in close to 40 years. And with COVID, you've seen the market change quite a bit. So with these approvals in 2017, Innovation Avenue north of the property was realigned. We built an interchange with Route 28, but the market had shifted again. With the advent of the Amazon HQ2 pursuit, the development team really took a look at the master plan and tried to reimagine something that would be more innovative. Where do people want to work? Where do they want to live in the future? This master plan drawing shows you what is now approved in Loudoun County as of April. Just capped off a just over 2-year process with those approvals that were granted in May of this year. In Loudoun County, 2,719 residential units, roughly 1.8 million square feet of commercial office planned, a 280 key boutique hotel on Block B. And all of that really is focused in the center on what we call the retail village, which are more human scale 1- and 2-story buildings that provide for a diverse array of F&B options, entertainment, specialty retailers. So quite curated. 16 acres of parks really provide the interstitial connection and open space. That was one thing that all the other plans that I had showed you really kind of lacked, and has become much more of a focus, I'd say, not only for residents, but for prospective commercial office users, attracting employees to come into the office. Telework, we're still fighting that. You've seen more of a return to the office, but our view on commercial office, and I'd say more broadly, is tenants who are in leases, who are in maybe less attractive buildings, need less space. Their budget can stay fixed, but they're like, we need to go into better space in order to get people back in the office and have this interactive and a better culture that we can sort of affirm through the company as we grow. Our phasing plan for the development in Loudoun County, this is a representation of Phase 1A. So to match the market, generally multifamily led, we have creative office plan for in the retail village that would be above ground floor restaurants or retail, so more loft style, not big block commercial office like you'd see at the Fannie Mae building in Reston, and then the hotel on Block B. The thought being that once we set that sense of place, you have 16 acres of parks. All the parks are open to the public. I should mention that this Horsepen Valley Park, which is roughly 9 acres, we have a stream restoration project that was approved by DEQ. So we're actually working with Loudoun County and their municipal stormwater permit, generate a lot of benefit through nutrient credits to meet regulatory requirements, helps the county. And the Horsepen Run tributary was identified as a degraded stream, so we're helping offset that through a pretty innovative process that I'll give credit to Gordon Engineering, our civil engineer, to come up with that to help solve for what would otherwise require a lot of infrastructure, concrete, and different elements throughout the project. So setting the place, then we have the majority of our office development along the toll road, higher visibility, which is sort of apropos for what you might see and what companies desire, really clustering more of the residential to the north side, which is a bit more shielded from that. Blocks E and C3 are a bit more high-rise, and then finishing off with Block F and J there on the right-hand side. Here's a shot of the village looking east. So just to reiterate the scale, if you go to Reston Town Center, everything, the ground plane is all retail, but you in most cases have higher-rise buildings above. Just inverted that concept to really try and provide for a more intimate setting and differentiated within not only the toll road, but any other projects you might see in the region. These renderings give you a bit of scale for what that might look and feel like. Part of it is to try in designing the architecture retail. We haven't really dived into this, but conceptually, you want it to be new, but not look and feel new, maybe a little bit like Leesburg, for example, and have a bit of unique differentiation throughout so that you're getting something different. It doesn't look like it was just all set down there at one time. Here's a highlight of the park and open space network. Boulder Ridge is a roughly 4-acre park. We have a lot of tree conservation identified throughout the project within Boulder Ridge, Horsepen, and then on the south of Green Promenade. The idea here is that we're really trying to set a multimodal transportation network, and it's not only that people can come here by car, you can fly into Dulles and take the metro, and you can walk throughout the entire development through there. A lot of bike ped infrastructure here, and it's coordinated to integrate with the county's countywide transportation plan. So as this quadrant develops, you will see that network expand, and we worked pretty extensively with DPCI at Loudoun County to integrate some of those elements. Here's another shot of Horsepen Park. We have an elevated walkway that's ADA accessible, gets you down to the stream valley. Feel like it's a very good feature to educate the broader public on the importance of the environment. You don't get much in the way of park space like this that close to Metro. and we're seeking a number of sustainable certifications for this project once we get it underway. Here's a bit more of an aerial view with the programming, really more passive type of park programming within the stream valley. Here's a rendering of Boulder Ridge. Have a lot of mature trees up there, and the geologic formation. Most of the other plants within Rivana that had been approved in the past just kind of plowed through this ridge, which is the high point of the site. A lot of interesting boulders up there, geologic features that we wanted to try and preserve and highlight. And then the green promenade with the what we call the cycle track next to it provides for a better pedestrian and bicycle experience throughout there. That's the end. I will, it's probably good to touch on the Fairfax portion of the property. So I did mention that in Loudoun County, we received our entitlement approvals in May. Fairfax Fairfax has a comprehensive plan that was written, I'd say it's 2018, 19 issued. So pre-COVID, some options that were framed toward the pursuit of the Amazon headquarters RFP, a lot of commercial office that was possible in Fairfax. We've recently submitted a site-specific plan amendment for the Fairfax property, so we're much earlier on in the initial stages. And our goal there is really to provide for more flexibility amongst the mix of uses in Fairfax. That process easily take 2 years just to process the plan amendment and a rezoning, anywhere from 18 months to 2 years as well. So a lot further out in the timeline. There are a few other prospective development projects around us in that rail transit planning area that are in as well. And that process, our submission was adopted in April. So we're in the very early stages of that. It's a pretty slow grind in Fairfax to try and figure that out. And it's a new process. So, but we're pretty excited. Our development phasing starts in Loudoun County. It was always planned that way. Hopeful to try and start some work either Q4 this year or early next year on the site in preparation for construction.
That'd be site work.
Correct. Yeah, the Stream Valley project is one that we're very interested in kicking off on the project. It's a nutrient bank, so the sooner you start, you need to establish the bank in order to garner the benefit of it. And happy to answer any questions that a group has.
Just out of curiosity from a design perspective and having seen earlier versions of this, I take it that you've gotten rid of the idea of doing underground parking and have put it all above?
So that is correct. We initially, and you pointed out well, that beneath the retail village, when we submitted our initial concepts to Loudoun in April of 2021, we had a parking garage underneath all of this retail. There was roughly 1,200 spaces. Everyone is probably aware of what inflation has been across the board over that period of time. And so when with interest rates rising and construction prices rising, we repriced that podium, and it was just unbuildable given some of the engineering and the layout. The concept you see now has two skin-clad structured parking garages within this southwest corner of the village and one next to the hotel. Still proximate to the village. If money is like not an issue, you could build the podium. We still like it. We have a lot of different concepts that might facilitate that. We're still far from final engineering, but it's hard to see a world in which that's buildable given the cost impact of it.
Now you just also got approval for a CDA, right?
So the Loudoun County Board of Supervisors, we had a public hearing on the CDA back in, this was June, which has been advanced to business meeting.
Okay. And And
Right.
it's a
CDA,
CDA
what?
A community
Development Authority. It gives you the ability to raise additional revenue to pay for elements of the project, typically transportation oriented stuff.
Public infrastructure.
So is the area of the CDA just the project itself?
It would be, yes, within Loudoun County. The county's been very supportive of this project. We had a unanimous vote of approval from the Board of Supervisors, which is, I shouldn't say unprecedented, but not
It's
usual.
unique.
It's unique. In Loudoun County, this is, I mentioned we're planning a 1.8 million square feet office. It could be up to 2.4 given our approvals. This is their corporate opportunity for a corporate hub and bringing more diverse employment and having companies headquartered their data in Loudoun County, but they want to diversify the economy. So there's been a lot of support in vis-a-vis the CDA trying to help fund park improvements and road and utility infrastructure. This quadrant is relatively underserved from utility infrastructure. We've been working with Dominion and other providers, Loudoun and Fairfax Water, to figure out 9 million square feet of development at Rivana. North of us, Waterside, is several million feet. I think it's 14 overall, just between Old Ox 28 and the toll road. So there will be, a bit of work to enable all that development down there.
I would think Loudoun County would have some influence on Fairfax County to continue to approve the Fairfax County portion. I mean, are they talking to each other?
That's an interesting relationship. They do talk to each other. Both counties are interested in having an integrated solution for this property. I think everyone wants it to be cohesive, walkable, not disjointed, which is where you can wind up without unified ownership of the site. And with the Loudoun approvals behind us, I think it's mostly settled planning wise. There wasn't much interaction, I'd say, during the Loudoun County process with Fairfax. A little bit referring to them, but
Yeah, but I mean, tax-wise, I would think it would be a kind of a nightmare up there, that's right on the line between.
yeah. I don't know how they settle the tax bill for the CIT building, but we ran a check that our tax
there is one.
It's tax exempt.
Yeah.
It was tax exempt.
Yeah.
And then we bought it.
Yeah.
So can I ask you a question? If you had to look into the future, how far in the future would you say this project will be completed?
The overall development timeline to what it looks like now to what it will look like there, I think it could easily be 15 years of development. If there's a catalyst, if Amazon Web Services wants to sign a lease for 2 million square feet of office, I could condense materially, but it's a challenging time for that, and macroeconomics really drive a lot of the velocity of that, but it's still easily 10, 15 years just given the amount of effort, construction, phasing, and so forth.
What will be the first services available after you have the utilities, and what will you build first?
So the first phase in Loudoun County, and I'll flip back here, insofar as we know today, will look generally like this. 160,000 feet of retail within these 12 buildings, close to 1,600 multifamily units, 280 key hotel. We have planned, as I mentioned, creative office in the village, so 100,000 feet of loft office above retail, and we have the option to build an office building on Land Bay A, up to 225,000 feet. And our hope is that once people see the construction, they know the place will be there. Office leasing is generally like a 2-year window, so companies that are out in the market are looking 2 years out, and that'd be roughly the amount of time that, with everything going on, you can say, well, we have an opportunity on Block D, and so some of this initial phasing, in our view and our hope, is that while Phase 1A is underway, this construction may very well start. And so the hope is that you have a pretty consistent build out throughout the remaining phases of the project.
Are you contemplating townhouses, multifamily? To me, it means apartments.
Correct. So the density in the comprehensive plan within Loudoun County and Fairfax are really more geared towards higher density, and so we're not contemplating any townhouses or 2/2s or single-family homes. There may be for-sale condos, not precluded. We did, at the request of the Loudoun Board of Supervisors, provision for sale condos within the Block B Hotel. So similar to what Comstock's doing at Reston Station. They have an amenitized condo building, and they're building a JW Marriott there. So condominiums are, I guess, interesting to execute. There hasn't been much build out in this market or in the toll road, so that could be an interesting solution, and we certainly think there's
Create a lot of problems. I can attest to that.
We should have lunch sometime.
Yeah.
Colin, what about attainable, affordable workforce requirements?
So within Loudoun County, we proffered to 10% of our units at 60 and 80% of AMI throughout the whole development. So that nets roughly, close to 260 affordable, attainable units.
What would you consider the front door of this facility? Would it be
So
T2A?
T2A is really the main vehicular access into
Where's Rock Hill Road in that relation?
So Rock Hill Road,
Off the screen to the
yeah, it's over here.
Yeah.
You have a question in the back?
Yeah, I think I heard earlier, the total project is about $1 billion. Can you share how the funding will get secured or would be secured?
So our first phase is $1 billion of capital, 1.1 inclusive of the horizontal infrastructure. At full build out, this is probably a $4 billion project to build. But it would be valued at stabilization would be in excess of that. We have close to $200 million of infrastructure in Loudoun County alone. So roadways, some public parking, parks, and utilities. Fairfax it's probably closer to $1.5 billion of that for. So 5.5 million feet in Loudoun, 5 to 5.5, and then 3.5 million feet in Fairfax. With the airport off to the southwest, we have a height restriction that as you move further east is more gracious, if you will. So you'll see higher rise buildings here, 15 to 20 stories allowable by the FAA. Buildings here, the village is below the cap, it's only 1 or 2 stories, but they generally range from 5/1 buildings for the initial phase residential. Some of the buildings, as you move further east, those are 15 to 20 stories. So the density kind of builds up to the metro station.
Any federal subsidy for these funding? No.
We would love some if you have any. There's a lot of transportation around here. We feel like there are some regional transportation improvements that would, I think, benefit everybody. If you've sat in traffic on Route 28, that there are solutions for that. Those are complicated questions to answer involving several jurisdictions in the Commonwealth. So, but not as of right now.
One of the older renderings used to have a bridge that connected the south side of Sunrise Valley.
Davis Drive extension.
So correct. We have reserved right of way for the extension for the county-wide transportation plan. So as you referenced, there's a planned north-south connection that comes off of Sunrise Valley Drive, sweeps west, and lands approximately here. Got an alternative development scenario for this block, F and J, which is in the latter phase of the development. Davis Drive would continue north through Waterside. And, you know, that's pretty much
It's
it.
my understanding that flyover is in design. I don't think they've got the money committed for construction, but I think Fairfax has advanced the design.
Correct.
Loudoun may have some
Yeah, I think
design money in there
the
too.
Fairfax board may have, like, allocated some funding,
Yeah.
but it's not fully funded.
Yeah, no, they don't have the money to build it, but they are trying to push the marble down the road.
Yeah. I mean,
Is Origami Capital still involved in this?
yes, they are still the landowner.
Okay. And they're out of Chicago, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
At the end of the project, how many jobs directly or indirectly created by this project?
What?
That's a good question. We
I'm sorry.
we analyzed that for the purposes of a tourism financing program within the Loudoun County portion, but that was limited to the hotel and retail village. I will say that across the whole development, you probably wind up having 15 to 20,000 people there in a given day. Living, coming to work, I mean, it's just based on vehicle parking and capacity for the offices. So if you think about that, I mean, I don't know, there are like probably 3 or 4 people for every one that's there if you have support services. So it will be a pretty meaningful employment generator.
So we're gonna get a help.
Sorry?
A lot, many people has a problem hiring people.
Yeah. Well, that's a good point. I'd say, Loudoun's specific goal is to try and attract Fortune 500 type of companies. I know Buddy, who's the economic development director in Loudoun's, been out traveling a lot, and there's a lot of interest in this project. I mean, not only nationally but internationally as an incubator. I think given its proximity to Dulles, makes it a pretty attractive option for foreign companies to come and locate and try and help access the U.S. market. So there's, I'd say, a lot of interesting opportunity. And, ironically ties back to the original mission of the CIT building. So, hopefully we're starting to deliver that, albeit in a different form from the original rezoning that I shared with you earlier.
Are there other developers with active proposals to construct near the innovation stations?
So, yes, as you may have overheard earlier, Greystar has a property over here that they recently had their site plan approved. I believe it was 2 weeks ago. They cleared that site. It's 430 units, roughly, of residential. There are, as I mentioned, we have a site-specific plan amendment in process with Fairfax to accommodate what you see on the screen, which is a little bit more multifamily and some hotel and some flexibility. Peterson Companies has an SSPA in east of us to provide affordable and workforce housing on the Dulles Green Cricket Ground. And then there's another plan amendment north of us that is, I believe, townhomes. They're also in that plan amendment process, which I think they had, again, commercial office that was part of the comp plan up there, but the market now is interesting. Fairfax's planning staff commented that of all the plan amendments they received, about 80% were designed to increase residential density within the properties, and this is throughout the county. So America has a housing shortage. We do not have a shortage of commercial office space, so there may be mixed feelings about that, be it the government and the tax base and so forth. But I think, in my view, that's solving an issue with the supply side solution that I think long term should be good for just general planning purposes.
So, given this shot, which covers your transportation pretty much on the outside of your development, there's discussions now about football stadium being located, and the one probably out of the two sites in Loudoun County, the A site would be just right across the street on the north side, and I'm just curious as to, have you taken a look? Well, you probably haven't, but with the updated transportation stuff that you've all had to proffer, do you see a football stadium being able to be handled by the transportation system as it is currently
No.
planned? Or
Well, there's nothing even built here in the transportation system can handle regional traffic. You are right. If anyone's reading the Post, there are a few development sites that are attractive. One, the old RFK site. Some legislation was recently introduced to help facilitate that vis-a-vis a ground lease. If anyone who doesn't know, it's a federally owned property, so there are a lot of congressional hurdles that need to be cleared in order to have that be an option. Being proximate to Metro, this is the Virginia site, in our view. And when I say site, just like sort of broadly speaking, given its proximity to transportation and the airport. Current ownership put a land purchase contract on for assemblage in Prince William, which, nothing against Prince William County, but to me is a head scratcher. I've been to Landover, and it's like, this is hard to do, even if you're taking the red line out there. And so I understand the league's voting in July on the sale. I imagine that it'll be several years to try and sort out a new stadium location, but I would imagine that the new ownership would be very interested in trying in revitalizing some enthusiasm for the team to try and solve for that.
There's if you come down Rock Hill Road at the intersection of Rock Hill Road and Innovation Drive, that community there, that residential community.
Double screen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a new big huge sign there that says Innovation Development Center. It's on the entrance to that housing project. It seems like, why would they call a housing project the Innovation Development Center?
I don't know. I'm headed to the office later this morning, so I'll have to check it out. That's the second time I've heard that brought up, but it's not. I mean, not affiliated with our work here in the area.
So nothing happens to Rock Hill Road, right? You don't increase the. That's not going to be a sneaky backdoor entrance to the metro and to the.
No, I mean I think there's some limited improvements to that road as part of the countywide transportation plan in Fairfax. Nothing related to our development. So there's a new connection through Waterside Shaw Road that we've offered to help fund to help keep traffic. Another parallel corridor from 28, and then you mentioned Davis Drive, which would then parallel Rock Hill as well. So I don't think it's a secret that
it's just another concern of the town.
Yeah,
of Herndon, I know.
Yeah, absolutely. So there are other parallel corridors that are designed to handle that future traffic.
I mean, they're already coming down Rock Hill Road now, going to the Metro Center and parking. They're parking on the streets.
Well, yeah. If you're coming from Sterling, it's the only way really to get there.
Yeah, but they're parking in the right-hand turn lanes of that development, and I don't know how long that's going to last, but they're illegally parking, in my opinion. And they're using the Metro. They go there at 7 o'clock in the morning. They come home at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Even on the weekends, that's parking.
So this is the garage for the Metro station,
right?
That's designed to support that.
Yeah,
right now it's challenging to get to that garage, as you pointed out, if you're coming from the north. So, that may be a solution as we get further along with Fairfax and trying to ameliorate that. And I know with Supervisor Letourneau working with WMATA, we had conversations with him just regarding funding and ridership. They're interested in developing this region because it will help spur ridership, arguably. But yeah, there's some long-term transportation.
On the Herndon side, the metro. I mean, that's, as far as they're concerned, that's free parking, whereas the garage, you have to pay for parking, right?
I know, but it's still a problem of getting there is not convenient for
Exactly.
everybody
On the
that's
north.
north.
I mean,
And as long as you don't have no parking signs up or yellow curbs, it's legal to park.
yeah, but not in a arrows on the street, right-hand turn only. That can't be legal. And,
Well,
Call VDOT.
yeah,
Don't call me that, they won't help you.
Well, yeah,
I mean, they
we
cover
been
up all the
struggling with the
right-hand
same
turn
problem
arrows.
along Innovation Avenue, so.
We have that problem, not in our county, we can't.
Colin, shifting to the other side, as far as transportation, any anticipated reconfiguration of the Innovation 28 interchange? The entrance from the west?
Up here?
Yeah.
No. Potentially, I mean, long term, we studied a connection to the Dulles Greenway. So if you know now, you have to go up 28 to get back on there. But I don't think anything's planned or funded with respect to DTCI or VDOT or Fairfax.
So is Atlantic Boulevard planned to extend south of 606?
Atlantic Boulevard.
So last year they completed it, probably, I'm sorry, I'm blanking out on his name.
I'm sorry, Rob, what was your
Mr.
question?
Herman, what's the name of Atlantic? It was extended last year, they built 3 or 4 new data centers on the north side of 606.
Mhm.
That's Davis Drive, isn't it? It changes names.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's no longer called Atlantic.
That's
Yeah,
why
it
it-
just changes names there, so
Yeah,
that is Davis Drive.
Davis Drive is contemplated to continue through Waterside, and then there's another north-south corridor, Shaw Road, which would run through and connect to our main thoroughfare in the project. But the quarry is still active, so that the timing of those improvements is all, at least with respect to their development, tied to a lot of backfill and remediation, and they're starting development. Those roads need to be in before they have any zoning occupancy permits there. So I would imagine they're quite far off in the future given what we know today.
So what's the approximate distance from the metro station to the western end of your property? Is it over a mile?
That's about a mile as a crow flies.
And so would you plan a jitney-like service within?
Yeah, so we have proffered a shuttle bus service within Loudoun County. So fine details to be determined, and will change as the development proceeds, but required at first occupancy permits, and really would have stops throughout Rivana and back to the metro. I could see that being more of an interesting solution as there's more development. Trying to encourage that. Mosaic and Merrifield are actually piloting a driverless shuttle to the metro.
That's
Fairfax.
actually, believe it or not, they just shut that down
Oh, yeah.
within the last month.
What happened?
I don't know. I saw the announcement last month. So you were mentioning Peterson has property to the east of you?
So this you asked about other development. Someone asked about other development in the area. This cricket ground, they've put it in a proposal to Fairfax. This property is owned by Fairfax County to develop affordable and workforce housing there.
So that's between Dulles Green and the station?
Yeah.
yeah, it's a fenced-in area now.
There's a wetlands preservation area between the Kiss and Ride and that cricket field.
There's a pedestrian connection plan through this RPA to Metro that Fairfax is working on. I appreciate sports fields. Now that they build a Metro here, there's probably a better use for that. So I can see why it could be attractive to Fairfax to want to develop affordable housing close to transportation. Yes.
Does GSA have any interest, any thoughts about federal agencies or things like that?
So yeah, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of the
leasing activity in the market right now is related to government contractors, maybe not government agencies, but those that work for them. One challenge with government leasing is that there's generally a cap on what they are willing or able to pay in order to, win a contract, or there's a federal policy in place. So you don't see many GSA or government related entities moving in a new Class A office. That being said, we don't rule it out. It's just, it's hard to make the economics work given those dynamics.
How about the park? I like what you had for the parks, but I think back about New York City, Great Central Park, you think about the mall. You've got nice designer things, but what are opportunities for concerts, outdoors, large gatherings? This is the gateway to Loudoun. This may be the first impression or only impression of Loudoun for a lot of folks. It's pretty cool.
So within the park spaces, I mentioned Loudoun, we have 16 acres of parks. There's a smaller amphitheater planned within Horse Pen Run, and it's not like Jiffy Lube Live or Merriweather. It's just for smaller sort of arts gatherings. We do fully support and are trying to work on integrating a music venue to this development. The board in Loudoun expressed a strong desire, as did the citizens of Loudoun at our planning commission hearing, of trying to have a facility that can, not only bring in commercial acts, but there are a lot of like local orchestras and performers that don't have a good venue. And so I think there's a lot of support, it's potentially a creative solution to do that. And while not part of the first phase, I think once we have some of that critical mass, there are a lot of opportunities to try and locate that venue somewhat proximate to this retail village. So if you think of the Wharf and the Anthem, I think we're looking at more like a 3,000 seat venue potentially. The Anthem's double that, so that provides some context. But yeah, performing arts would be great, I think, for everybody.
That's great. So, but now, not your problem, but just kind of thrown out for the group here. When I look at the picture, I just get agitated thinking about the overlaps of the county, because when you talked about Fairfax, you didn't break out the town of Herndon as being different than Fairfax County. Thinking about police response just to that area, you've got Loudoun County, Fairfax County, Herndon, just in that picture you have right there.
Herndon doesn't. That's not the corporate limits of Herndon. The police don't go inside that.
That's my point. That's my point. And so, just looking at that kind of a picture, you've got three different jurisdictions and responses. We need to be thinking as a counties, how do we think differently about this property? It's going to force us to rethink what we do, how we respond, and just the planning that you're having to put up with. It's unacceptable for the excitement of generating, because I think with all the construction that could go on, this is one of the things that could skyrocket us out of the pandemic problems, because it allows us to bring in and continue building and jobs for the next, like I said, 15, 20 years. Beyond just filling the buildings and with employees, it's about the construction and those jobs.
Yeah, I know. So Loudoun County as capital needs assessment. They identify future police stations, fire stations. We were not asked to provide a fire station here, although internally we said, look, you have 8 million feet, like what's the dispatch time and what makes sense? I mean, we could certainly accommodate a fire station down here, and you're right, with Fairfax, we've not gotten far enough along in that conversation to figure out whether they need to have something here, want to have something here. I think we're pretty flexible, and look, at the end of the day, if you have 20,000 people here, and there's a big community to the north, you want to make sure that you have that covered. It's a good point.
You cited earlier this site might be suited for international or foreign company coming in as a headquarters or in the tech-related company. Do you have a package I can send it to them, or is it publicly allowed to share with other people?
So I do not have a package right now. We actually met with our leasing broker yesterday and Buddy Reiser at Loudoun County, and that's something that we're currently in the process of trying to generate. So, yeah, I mean, as far as outbound inquiry, we always, love to garner interest, and we'll have materials, I'd imagine, probably in Q3 of this year that are outward market facing. So, yeah, happy to have a conversation.
There's some of us traveling in November to Korea.
Okay.
We hope. Opportunity to carry a package.
Yeah. No, that's good context. Happy to follow that conversation up. We should be in good shape by then.
Jen, just follow up because Scott wants me to talk about this. It's Committee for Dulles, right? So this group is about the airport and the surrounding areas. I mean, how do we leverage this to help the airport? The international is the perfect opportunity, but are there things that we can be thinking about pre-positioning and helping? And how do we, as Committee for Dulles, not just look at this and go, it's interesting, nice growth up and down, but we've got the internet, the Spy Museum, the International or SOCOM Special Operations Intelligence Science Museum going in just north of here. We've got, StarKist just came here in Reston. We've got international really is part of what we're doing. How do we, as Committee for Dulles, think about this airport, right? You have one hotel. It's not going to be, a killer to our existing business and hotels. There's talk with the airport about conference centers and what that might mean. What will this generate more opportunity? But I think we probably need to do some more thinking, helping for you about what we can do as Committee for Dulles to be thinking about, even architecturally. Any thoughts to leveraging the swoop at the airport or making people think about the airport and having this group look the same?
Yeah. Those are good points, and look, I think let me pull this up here because we can put the airport in proximity to our development project. So I mean, commercial office leasing, I think at the end of the day is sort of the end goal for us. Like, let's have this be a business hub, and really that was the impetus for the original development of CIT. Given its proximate to Dulles International Travel, that sort of multinational construct makes, I'd say, a lot of sense. If there's a football stadium in this vicinity too, that helps generate a lot of activity, right? So, international business is one. Loudoun County is the largest tourism revenue generator in the state of Virginia. So there's a lot of ancillary partnership that comes from a lot of the rural areas and wineries and breweries and people like to see. So, when we've been talking to Loudoun County, it's like, how do we take the best of the West and bring it east to make it maybe more accessible to people that come stay in a nice hotel and get a flavor for that, and can partner with people, have a day trip that, someone's staying in Rivana, they want to go out and do a country tour, go ride a horse or whatever, play golf. That's an opportunity with regard to, so those types of economic partnerships, I'd say is the big thing, and using the airport as the hub of that makes a lot of sense. I mentioned we had one hotel planned in the first phase. We're trying to differentiate it from what's available in the market. I do know that we have up to 450 keys available to develop within Loudoun County. I think a larger flag conferencing type of hotel makes a lot of sense, potentially in Loudoun County or within the Fairfax development program. So all those things, I think, we're pretty aligned. Architecturally, to touch on that, we have not gotten into the specific architecture, but have general feel. We've been working on a new marketing fly-through video, which I'm really excited about, but couldn't share the newer images today, but will be public soon. I will say that differentiated architecture and something that's compelling is quite important. The Comstock's building, that Helmet Coal building with the exposed concrete structure there, sort of an indicator of the importance of that. And if Google headquartered there, Reston Town Center, Reston next with the Fannie Mae building, differentiated from what you see as the general kind of low rise along the toll road. So I think architecture will be very important, and trying to tailor that to a potential user or build to suit
that's the type of creativity that we would want to see in the project so that it is a special place for the long term.
That's great. When you drive out of the airport, that CIT building has always been something that
Yeah.
stops, right? So the innovation, you start when you leave the airport, you start thinking about that. Northrop Grumman obviously had the big sign, everybody sees that right away. It's gotta be something different, and we gotta be thinking about it as a region, not just, leave it to you to go, and we're gonna come up with something cool. That's unfair. And then having the planning just go, yes, no, that's unfair.
Mhm.
But what are the things that you can think of, and even flying in, when you look out the window, you see whether it's a football stadium or if it's some interesting architectural design. I think that's something that becomes a landmark for this whole region.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, we are, I'd say, given our involvement in the Amazon pursuit, we forged a lot of relationships at the county and Commonwealth level. So our big push right now is to capitalize the first phase of development, and as we get some more momentum, I think that those conversations pick up, and it's, look, how can we, preferably someone's moving across the country to headquarter here. They're not moving from up the street, right? Those are the types of wins that statewide, regionally, are accretive to our economy. So, given the opportunity here, I think there's a lot of alignment, there, and even the broader kind of real estate node that we're in.
Are you working with VEDP?
We have spoken with them. We hosted Secretary Merrick at CIT at our marketing center probably last year. So I know that they have an initiative to promote shovel-ready development sites and trying to do that. So the conversations are happening with the Commonwealth, and hopefully as we get some momentum, and have an office opportunity that's available that with construction underway, that we can leverage that.
Colin, looking at your phase 1A, if you don't mind going back to that graphic, what's the intensity of development for just that initial portion?
So the first phase, close to 1,600 residential units, 280 hotel keys, 160,000 feet of retail and F&B, and between 100,000 and 300,000 feet of office. Somewhat coalesced. That's roughly 2.3 million feet of development. A lot of the roadway, utility infrastructure, and 16 acres of parks deliver with that phase as well.
Is your hotel in first phase boutique?
Planned as, yes.
Okay.
So, I guess, is it the bridge over 28? Is that the Innovation Avenue Bridge?
So that overpass on 28 is part of the interchange that we had built.
So I don't know what's to the west of that. On the west side of 28?
West of 28 is the employee parking lot for the airport.
So, it would seem to me, long term, that would have some potential for development, because they can use that interchange that's already.
Actually, what's going, at least last time I've talked to the county about it, they're actually trying to work and make the connection to connect up to the Greenway in that area. So I don't really, to be honest with you, Rob, from a development potential, I just don't see it there. From a transportation potential, there's discussions to connect. So you have a complete loop of Atlantic Boulevard with Pacific Boulevard, and then connection onto the toll road, Greenway. So,
And I'm not sure if the presentation I saw here 3 or 4 years ago, I don't remember if that's the same development team but at the previous presentation you talked about access ramps to and from the toll road. Whoever spoke here 3 or 4 years ago.
Was that, who was here?
There was discussion of that, but not in favor by Fairfax and Herndon. You're talking about just coming off the toll road directly on to their property. Yeah, they just couldn't advance that with Fairfax and Tanner, from what I understand, so.
There is, the Fairfax countywide transportation plan does acknowledge a need for an additional east-west connectivity. So when you talk about the broader regional issues, there are a lot of solutions. Not everyone's going to love the solutions, but I think our hope is that as we start development and continue to work with Fairfax on the plan amendment, that some of those things that are planned or thought of can be finalized, because I think the last thing we want or anyone wants is to put another 20,000 vehicles in this node relative to how traffic is today. It just doesn't work. I mean, it doesn't work today. Our traffic consultants run a lot of models about the breakpoints and when those improvements are needed.
So I had asked, and Scott York is aware of this, so sometime within the last 3 years, VDOT did a study of, I'm going to use the word, access improvements to Dulles Airport. Was it a 28 study or? They're conversing. But VDOT did some kind of study around the airport. I don't know how far it went. I know that they're looking at a south side connection to relieve traffic on Route 50. But I never saw what was the outcome of the studies. So
those I'm not as familiar with, so I can't really comment.
Jack Vader, do you know anything about that?
Not that I can recall, but I've been out a couple of weeks, so.
No, this was 3 to 4 years ago, and it's like my question at the meeting we had the other week with Jack Potter. The airport's working on a master plan development, but I think what he said 2 weeks ago was that they've put it on hold for now, if I understood correctly.
Yes.
And so, I mean, obviously you tie into the airport. We need to see the totality, let's say, take a 5 mile radius around the airport and understand that everything that's going to happen in that general area, because to kind of give you an example, what's in my head is that to go from southbound 28 to eastbound Toll Road, there's going to come a point where, with additional traffic coming from Loudoun, I mean, that intersection is going to need to be redone or improved.
Yeah, I mean, there was an interjurisdictional working group that had met to come up with those solutions. And when we work through our entitlements in Loudoun County, and as we will in Fairfax, there's a lot of traffic study that is done. The jurisdictions work together and they work with VDOT, so that there is a lot of infrastructure planned in the future. Projects contribute to that infrastructure as we have with innovation in the Route 20 interchange and the future Shaw Road. So those things happen. They take a lot of time to develop. But we have, recently have not been involved in any sort of regional transportation.
So I'm looking at this map, the dotted line is in terms of a transportation, I'm going to use the word service district. Is there a radius, let's say from the CIT station, is it like a one mile radius, one level, and then beyond that less?
Are you talking about the distance from Metro and these concentric rings?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, does the density permitted change the closer you get to the station?
So generally that is a true premise. We're working through the dynamics of that with our plan amendment process here. So the county's comp plan, they generally want the taller buildings closer to the train station. Loudoun County, we didn't actually have a density cap on that property given the PVTC district that it was in, although we didn't add any density to relative to our previous approvals. So the cap here is, I'd say, more related to the FAA and what you can build in the practical setback matters as opposed to planning criteria.
So the aggregation easements exist, shall we say, close to 28. No, it's
With respect to the airport,
yeah.
we have an overlay over the whole property for certain airplane approach procedures.
So, I mean, closer to the airport, it's 75 feet. I don't know where you are.
Yeah, our caps range from, I think, 430 feet above sea level up to like 580 with farther you move east. So we're able to develop between, call it 10 and 20 stories, depending on where you are in the property.
Well, we're past the 9 o'clock hour, and are there any further questions?
Is this gonna be available to us, your
It's gonna go on. the
slides?
website.
Yeah, it'll be available. Well, we're recording this, so it'll be up on YouTube. Do you mind us taking the slides and converting them to a PDF and giving people access to?
I can circle back with you on that.
Okay, we'll talk afterwards on that. Well, Colin, thank you very much. I appreciate
Thanks for having me. Appreciate the good questions.
And
Usually you're talking to a group and everyone's sticking out. So.
No, it's an interactive group.
Yeah, that's good. That's good stuff.